And I know a lot of you have homeschool setups where you're doing this with the kids, and I think that that's absolutely the best thing you can do for them. They will be well ahead of the curve. All right. So last section we're going to read, then we're going to finish up. This is about Washington. I assume he's talking about George Washington. It says Washington fathered the country and what? What else? The popular perception of George Washington is that of the honest world leaders, or sorry, the perception of him is that he's an honest world leader and devoted to Martha, his wife. But if we are to believe one story about Washington's actual conduct toward one of his black female slaves, the reality was different from perception. Isn't that interesting? All right. Like most American presidents, George Washington was born into wealth, prominence, and power. And like many prominent men of his day, there were rumors that he fathered mixed race children. Reigning as a veritable king over a massive plantation with hundreds of black slaves, many of whom he had inherited from his father, Washington had unbridled access to anything he desired. So, like Thomas Jefferson, the record suggests that Washington was more than just the father of revolution and country. It was also rumored that he had fathered several black children by one of his favorite slaves. But unlike those involving Thomas Jefferson, this allegation has not been fully substantiated. Washington's alleged black mistress and their offspring were discussed in historian Richard Shankman's Legends, Lies, and Cherished Myths of American History. In this book, Shankman writes that the only evidence for the charge was a letter written by Washington in which he admitted to having an, quote, an assignation with pretty little Kate, the washerwoman's daughter, end quote. The letter, which has never been authenticated, was circulated by British authorities in an effort to discredit Washington during the battle for independence. Others have claimed that Washington died from a bout of pneumonia after a secret winter rendezvous with his black concubine. Seeking to protect his image and reputation, Washington's supporters insisted that it was his plantation manager, Lund Washington, who fathered a child by a black mistress. When the dust from the accusation settled, at least a few things were clear. A white male named Washington, living on the Washington plantation, had an affair with a black mistress and produced a mixed-race child. Which Washington was actually responsible remains a mystery that is unlikely to be solved. Well, one thing I do know, and I gotta try to make sure I say this right, is that some of you may know this, but I do know that Washington was connected with a law that was passed that basically allowed you to go hunt down your slaves anywhere in the country if they tried to run away. I'm gonna look it up and double check that, but I remember reading about that. That really affected my perception of him. I don't think any of these slave owners were good people as it pertained to how they viewed us. And what this makes me really think about is, I think as Black people, sometimes we have to really sort of process how the world sees us. Um, you know, I think it's very difficult to come from the status that we had historically, where we were seen as less than human, and then be surprised when they still see you as less than a human being today. The country spent hundreds of years pretty much seeing you as a notch above a dog. So imagine if all the dogs could suddenly talk, or the dogs suddenly wanted equal rights. It would be absurd for a lot of people. They wouldn't be able to understand that. And when I think about the fact that you have this country that's done these horrible things to us, I mean, just literally did things that they would never do to another human being, it helps you understand why things operate the way they do now, why there's certain perceptions of us, why certain people don't care. Like even when you talk about um homicide and things like that, when someone says, well, there's no problem with homicide in Chicago, Chicago homicide's fine.